This is part two of a video I made yesterday talking about whether or not Christians should or are allowed to celebrate Halloween. So I'm going to read directly from the Bible to direct where my thoughts are going to go on this, and maybe it'll help you determine if you're on the fence whether or not you should be or are allowed to celebrate Halloween as a Christian. So the first thing I'm going to look at is, what is Halloween about? So Halloween originated as a Celtic tradition in relation to harvesting, and it was thought at the time that that time of the year, I don't know all the details, but something along the lines of like the realm between the living and the dead was at its weakest, and they thought they could contact the dead. So that all sounds very anti-Christian. It sounds like something we've been warned against. So if you look at it from that light, it sounds like something as a Christian you should not participate in. And so let's read what the Bible says. So in Deuteronomy 18:10 through 12, it says, there shall be not, I'm sorry, it says, there shall not be found among you anyone who burns his son or his daughter as an offering. Anyone who practices divination or tells fortunes or interprets omens, or a sorcerer or a charmer or a medium or a necromancer, or one who inquires of the dead. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord. So that right there tells us that we should not be seeking an ability to contact the dead. I always thought that mediums and fortune tellers and all that were kooks. To some degree, I still think they are. But the Bible tells us that this stuff is very real. All the way back in the Old Testament, when Moses brings his staff to Pharaoh and turns it into a snake, and then Pharaoh's sorcerers do the same thing. I mean, from very early on in the Bible, we learn that magic is a legitimate thing, but we're told it's evil and to avoid it. We'll continue on. Isaiah 8:19 warns us against seeking out mediums and spiritists instead of seeking God. So again, if you're going out to Halloween and you're just trick or treating and you're getting candy, I don't know that this falls into that, but we'll talk about that more here in a minute. I think really what this is addressing when we're looking through the Bible about whether or not to celebrate Halloween, I guess so far it depends. Are we seeking out a way to contact the dead? And then really, I think what we have to ask ourselves are we celebrating in a way that glorifies God or glorifies evil? So let's continue on. So again, just to recap so far to this point, basically we're told we do not participate in Oculus practices. Okay. The next thing I'm going to read here is Ephesians 5:11. And actually, before I get into that, my I'll give you a little bit of my background. I always thought that in any situation, not just Halloween, but I'll give you a good example. I went to a Five Finger Death Punch concert a while ago, 6 months ago, something like that. And while we're there, Marilyn Manson comes out, and his stage is filled with upside down crosses, and he's always been known to have a little more satanic visualization. And I don't know much about it because I don't really listen to him. And my brother-in-law was standing there. He's a Christian, and we both just kind of looked at each other like, I don't know if we should be here right now. And so we're like, well, salt of the earth, right? Like let's be in this world, but not necessarily part of it, if that makes sense. And so we listened to some of the songs were good or whatever, but we're just, we're listening. And afterwards, he just looked at me. He's like, I was just praying for him the whole time. And it sounds silly and like almost Bible thumpery, I guess. But the reality is that this world, even though it was made for us, is no longer completely free of sin. I mean, as soon as Eve bit that fruit from the tree, sin entered into this world, and this is the reality that we live in. So we have to be able to move through life amongst sin, and it's how we carry ourselves. So let me continue reading. So Ephesians 5:11. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. And then in Romans 13:12, the night is far gone, the day is at hand. So let us cast off the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. So what is this telling me? This is saying that, you know, regardless of what situation you're in, we have to put on the full armor of God, in this case, the armor of light. Take no part in unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. So again, like when we're there, we're at the Marilyn Manson concert, and I'm not sitting there like, well, again, I don't know all the lyrics. I couldn't participate. But if there was some sort of like demonic thing happening, I wouldn't be participating. I would have stepped aside. Again, whether or not I was like paying attention to the music is besides the point. The point is like, what is our intent with even just being there? And how do we handle that? So in relation to Halloween, What does that mean? How does that look? Like if I'm going to go out trick or treating with my kids, how do I look at note taking part in unfruitful works, but instead exposing them? How I perceive that is, when you go to that house and it's just filled with gore and they maybe like set up a haunted house in their garage, yeah, they can be fun, they can be scary and exciting, but are they portraying something that I don't want to participate in that I know is ungodly? And I would say yes. So I'm going to skip over that house. To me, that's kind of where I draw the line, right? If I see one of those, I can't remember what they're called, like the Oculus star symbols or whatever, and I see like gore and blood and stuff all over the place. It's like, first of all, I'm out here to help my kids trick or treat. I'm not here for me. And if it was for me, I don't want to participate in that. I disagree with that. And in fact, I can use that as an opportunity to talk to my kids and say, if they're like, well, why are we skipping that house? We want to go get candy. I can use it as an opportunity to shed some light on the situation. And again, expose the unfruitful works of darkness. But if as a Christian, you don't ever put yourself in a place to expose the darkness, then we're not doing what we're called to do, as it's stated in Ephesians. But let's continue on. In Romans 14:5-6, it says, one person esteems one day as better than another, while another esteems all day alike. Each one should fully convinced in his own mind. And then in 1 Corinthians 10:23, all things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. So this is really talking about you as a person and your conviction. So if you carry yourself throughout the day saying that I am mightier than, holier, thank you, holier than thou, thank you to myself. If I am walking around saying that I'm a better person than you because I don't participate in these things, I really need to check myself because I am no better than anybody else. I fall short. I am filled with sin. Even if I have 1 ounce of sin, that's too much sin to be in God's presence. So I am not better than you. So who am I to judge you for celebrating Halloween? Now, if you're going out and you're committing sacrifices, human sacrifices on Halloween, I'm going to call it out. But I'm not going to say that you're a or a worse person than me, because who knows what I've done or what I'm going to do, right? Like there are things in this life that we don't share with everybody, and all of us sin. So I guess the point of this part of the Bible is to say, if you don't participate in Halloween, that's your decision. There's no, again, in 1 Corinthians, not all things are helpful. So it's fine if you don't participate. Where I draw the line, it's not me, this is God talking. God is saying that don't judge other people because of their actions, right? That's not your place. You can hate evil. We're called to hate evil, but it is not our place to judge. All right, I've got a few more here. This is gonna be a longer video. Sorry, guys. Not sorry. This is great stuff. I think it is. All right. So Jesus tells us that we need to be the light of the world. And we can see this in Matthew 5:14-16. So it says, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light in all the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. So again, as we're walking through and I'm trick-or-treating, that doesn't mean I'm like reading the Bible and street corner preaching to everybody. I think what this says is as you're moving throughout, whether you're trick-or-treating or at a Halloween party, or I realize not everybody's trick-or-treating with kids, but that's just where I'm at in my stage in life. But as I'm moving throughout a Halloween party, or I'm trick-or-treating, how do I carry myself? If I see some kid fall and spill his candy, do I just kind of like watch, like, oh, I hope that kid's okay? Or do I run over there and help him? And if somebody's like, thank you so much, like, why'd you do that? You say, I give it all to God. I try to listen to what he tells me, and I'm called to come help people. I don't know. Maybe you don't even have to be that direct. If you're with people, they'll just notice something different about you. And then eventually they'll ask like, hey, you always seem to want to step up and help. Why is that? The whole point is to direct people towards God. But again, if you don't put yourself in a position to let that opportunity arise, then are we being the light? Okay. So, it talks about not being hidden. So again, we have to be out there. A Christian who's a recluse is missing like half of the purpose of being a Christian, which is to go out and be the light. And again, I'm not, if you don't feel comfortable participating in Halloween, I don't know that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I think if you are going to go out, go to a Halloween party or something like that, um, you have to put on that full armor of God, right? You can't go in there just saying, well, whatever happens, happens. You have to be prepared because there are going to be situations that you run into. Even like with if you're going to get dressed up and wear a costume, think about what costume you're wearing. Like maybe don't dress up as the devil. That sounds like that would not glorify God, right? You don't have to dress up as Jesus or dress up as an angel or whatever. Just be something fun, be something funny. You know, somebody much smarter than me once said this, is like, if you have to ask yourself if something is a sin or not, instead ask, is what I'm doing going to glorify God or not? And so you can say, well, if I go to this Halloween party, is it going to glorify God? And the next question is, well, it depends, right? If you go dressed up as the devil, are you glorifying God? No. If you're going dressed up as something raunchy or something, whatever, then probably not, right? Or I'd say no. But if you're going to go dress up as just something fun, funny, and while you're there, you're having great conversation, you can develop fellowship even at a Halloween party. I would say that that does glorify God. So you just have to ask yourself these questions if you're concerned about it, or even if you're not concerned about it. We should ask ourselves these questions all the time. All right, I've got a few more here and then I'll stop talking. So John 4-5. This is a continuation of like being the light. It says, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So the point of this is saying is if you're going out somewhere and your purpose is to be the light, as long as you're truly trying to be the light, then darkness cannot overcome you. If you walk into a situation where you know there's something unholy going on or whatever, you'll be okay. You can overcome their darkness with your light. I guess a good example of this outside of the Halloween metaphor here is, have you ever been in a situation where like maybe two friends were bickering or something and you just go, hey guys, like chill out. It's not that big of a deal. Like let's stop fighting. You guys, you're upset, you're frustrated. Let's just all calm down. You're kind of like the even head that always breaks through, right? It's very, very rarely does that not break through. And if it doesn't break through, it's probably because you didn't necessarily approach it the correct way or whatever. But the point of being is that the light will overcome. Again, turn off all the lights in a room, make it pitch black. If you light a candle, it will shine. There's not enough darkness to put out that candle. So in relation to Halloween, it's the same thing. Go out there, just be the light, right? In First Peter 2:9, it says, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of the darkness into his marvelous light. So this is just saying that like we were called in to God's light. We ourselves aren't the light. We were brought into this. We were once in the dark. And that's not fair for us to leave other people in the dark. We need to go out and help bring them into the light. Wouldn't you want that if you were locked in a dark room and you couldn't find your way? Like picture you're in a haunted house, right? And you just can't get out, you can't escape. And there's somebody watching you and you're panicked and freaking out. Maybe you don't even know that you're in danger. Maybe you're about to fall into a hole that's in the ground. And somebody's sitting there watching you, and all they have to do is open the door and be like, hey, come over this way. And there's a light that shines through the door. Wouldn't you want somebody to on the other side of that door to like help you? Where what if you fall in that hole and you found out later down the road that somebody was just let you fall down the hole? I want to be that person that opens the door and helps somebody along the way. So I I think that's what this is addressing. I actually haven't read Peter yet, so I don't have the full context, but that's at least what I'm gleaning from reading this. And then the last one, that's not true. I've got two more. Second to last one, Philippians 2:14-15. Do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. So does this say that we have to be perfect? No. God knows we're not going to be perfect. That's the whole New Testament. He knows we're not perfect. But what this is saying is that if we're going to call ourselves Christians, if we're going to deem ourselves to be the light in the darkness, then we have to act differently. So this is where, again, we can't go to that Halloween party wearing a scandalous outfit and be like, oh, it's okay, I'm a Christian, I'll still behave nicely. It's like, no, no, no. We are called to be set apart. A good example of this outside of the Halloween metaphor again is I try very hard to not use cuss words. And the reason is because I'm a Christian. I used to cuss a lot around friends and all that. It just, it happens. It becomes like it's a dude thing or whatever you want to call it. But I've been very intentional about trying to eliminate that from my conversation because this right here, it says, in the midst of crooked and twisted generation, among you whom shine as lights in the world. Like we need to do our best. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect, but we have to be set apart, right? Someone has to be able to look at you and be like, man, there's something different about you. What is it? And then you can be like, it's Jesus. That's all I can tell you, right? There's nothing on my own that I can do for you. You need to go to him. All right. And then last one. Okay, this is in Ephesians 5:8-9. For at one time you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of the light is found in all that is good and the right and true. And so again, this is just reiterating that as as perfect as we think we are at times, we even maybe all have moments we just like, you just have a great day where everything went great and you yourself, like you just turned away from all the sin or did whatever, you were volunteering all day, whatever that is. We have to remember we were all born in sin. That is why we all need to be saved. I don't care how perfect you are now, I guarantee you the most perfect person you can think of is sinning in their head. And we all had to be rescued. So we need to be rescuers. So at the end of all this, should Christians celebrate Halloween or are we allowed to? I think the first question is, should Christians celebrate Halloween? I would say yes, we should. We should celebrate Halloween by getting out there, mixing in with the masses, and showing people the light of Jesus. And of course, can we? I would say yes. This all comes with a huge asterisk, which is be careful. This is going to be a time of temptation for a lot of people, especially if you're a young man. A lot of women are dressed very scantily, and it is an opportunity to go out and sin. Same thing for the young women out there. There's a lot of parties happening and all that. But beyond that, like getting into the spiritual stuff, it is another time of year where there are a lot of like tarot card readers and fortune tellers. And it's like, oh, yeah, this is fun. I'll just do it for funsies. It's $5 or someone's doing it for free. And you're like, yeah, why not? I'll just get my palm read or something. It's part of the holiday, right? That's where we need to be careful. I don't think that God looks at us and saying, or we're taking our children out to go get candy or whatever, as something that is unholy or sinful. I think what we do with that is where he'll look at us. Are we walking down the street, the kid falls, and do we help them pick up their candy? Do we see a house that is just filled with satanic stuff, and do we go into it? Do we approach it? If we do, are we doing it with the full armor of God and protecting those in our care? Am I telling my children, hey, go along, I'm going to go talk to these people, right? I want to go have a conversation with them. Or do I just pass them by, pray for them, do whatever I can do, but make sure I protect those who have been put in my care and to steward in this life? So we need to think about all these things. I don't think it needs to be as dramatic as we're all making it, but I do think it's worth having a conversation about and thinking on. By the way, this is the first year I've ever read my Bible about Halloween. So I hope you submitted through this. As a long video. I hope it helped you guys. If you've had any questions about whether or not as a Christian we should celebrate Halloween, I hope it helped you. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below. I'll definitely respond to you. And if you made it this far, way to go, especially on TikTok, because, people last like 3 seconds on these videos. All right, see ya.